G'day, Mathematical KM or Keith Malumbi. Remember our initials, not a title. Okay, welcome to round 9 of the Canberra Chess Club tournament. And 60 minutes plus 30 seconds of move, so it's over the board, long play game. I'm weighing in at 1476 with FIDE. My opponent, John Newman, 1441, so it's a bit of a change for me to have a slightly higher rating than my opponent. And the white pieces, let's see what I can do with it. So away we go. And of course we're going to set up our water horse hippopotamus. He moves his e-pawn, claiming the centre. Fianchetto the bishop. Brings out a knight. Move the d-pawn. Standard stuff so far for the hippo. Standard for black as well, claiming the middle. Bring another pawn out in the middle. He's got both his knights out. The a-pawn before the b-pawn, just to keep his knight and bishop out of b4. And so we're moving away from our 10 standard moves of setting the hippo up because he's already pushed forward. Interesting that the computer is asking for taking, but in traditional hippopotamus style, we go the Lego fit. The way I'm looking at that is I will now never fianchetto my dark bishop. It's already on a fairly active sort of a diagonal. Don't really want to put it on the main diagonal, which is biting on granite. So it's in a better place now. And my light bishop can be moved at a moment's notice to h3, for example, or, it's currently protecting a forward pawn there. But I wasn't too worried about locking it up in the middle. Okay, he's getting ready to castle. I'm starting to think about this pawn here. So if you're watching these videos of mine, you may be tempted to give the old water horse a go at some point. You've got to have a target that you work hard to get, and it tends to be like winning a central pawn. So that's what we're aiming for here. He's just got the one defender. And what I'm looking at is at some point in time, having a knight here and a knight here. I can have two knights attacking that pawn. Probably take it, he'll take back, I'll take back. So I win a central pawn and have a knight quite far forward. That's vaguely what I'm thinking about at this stage. And so, and that's a standard place for a knight in the hippopotamus as well. He's come flying in, I would say a little prematurely, because sure, he could take that f-pawn and I would need to move my king, but I don't think a knight sack for the f-pawn right now is going to come to fruition. And I can just ask his knight to either do that or go away. I mean, I guess no, in there just the pawn takes it. He really has nowhere other than these two. Computer likes back to where he came from. And this, I guess that in many ways that was a key move of the game. A lot of stuff happens, but a lot is going to be because the only protection that knight's got is a pawn that should be in front of his king. Let's see how that comes about. Okay, so I've brought out one knight that's attacking the pawn. So now it's 1v1 on that pawn. And he's still got, if he does castle that way, the fairly important pawn's the only protector of that knight. And you might have noticed that when and if I do get to play knight to c4, giving me two knights on that pawn, it's a discovered attack on that knight. So there's a few things cooking away here. The hippo's starting to boil. Okay, so he's castled. So taking that knight and forcing that pawn to the H file, that would be really good. So, and also, hey, capturing that central pawn, also good. So let's try for both. We get the discovered attack. We now have 2 knights on his e-pawn. He protects his e-pawn with a pawn. Fair enough, I'm not going to go in with a knight because a pawn is one of the best defenders. However, that's further weakening his king, and let's go and double the pawns. Computer really liked that move. And it's been on the cards for a while now, so we've been planning it. He's got to take it back. So now we can see his king. His king's protection isn't super good. So move my queen forward, thinking about potentially castling queenside. Also, my queen potentially could take that pawn. Just trying to develop the pieces here. Still got an edge. Okay, that was a little bit of a mistake there. Largely because my own e-pawn, seppuku. Okay. I would not mind having my white bishop where that e-pawn is. So, computer's saying take his f-pawn, but no, I'll let him take me if he's game. And for now, that pawn was one of only 2 protectors of his e-pawn. I've got my 2 knights on it. And if I move this knight, then my bishop's aimed at where I would really, truly like to put it. So let's go. We take. He does take with his knight. We take back with my knight. His d-pawn's now weak. What can you say about his f-pawn? I mean, it will release his rook, but I am still hoping he's going to take mine. It'll be putting 2 of his pawns together, maybe. Not for very long. But he does take. And now you'll note the bishop has got his potential check, but also if I can get a queen or other piece in there, I'm getting more and more pieces. Throwing them, as Simon Williams would say, throwing pieces at his king. And discombobulate a lot of his pieces. The queen and the bishop, or both bishops, they're sort of semi-active. But his king's safety is a little bit less than mine, is how I think we could look at this at the moment. And so let's try and generate some threats. Okay, he generates a threat, threatening my queen. And let's just ask that bishop to go away. It does. It's interesting that right now is the moment to castle queenside, according to the computer. And I did think about h4, which would then let me advance the f-pawn and keep his queen and bishop away. But at the end of the day, I was thinking if he does take my knight and my f-pawn moves across, one, it's not under any direct threat for a moment or two, so it's fairly far forward, bit of a problematic pawn for black to deal with, but also the f-file is a place I can get rooks and queens and things. So I've moved my queen across. I mean, it's a mating threat. He's going to have to deal with it. Have to do something. But he takes. I take back. He moves a rook across to threaten my e-pawn, which is not defended. Queen across. Again, if I can get my queen to here. It's not quite mate, but it's most of a mating net, and I can probably get either by castling, be the quickest way, or just moving the rook directly across. Starting to get some pressure towards black's king. Okay, so he's protecting his h-pawn from my queen. Let's just get a rook on this file. So we've got a rook, bishop, queen. We are starting to... I'd say that his pieces are more discombobulated than mine. Mine are starting to put together some threats towards his king. Okay. And so he has moved his rook back. And that is... lets me take that pawn, but he's just trying to get some more protection in front of his king. Now I can't take that pawn with the queen now because he's got his rook there protecting it. And he gets his rook directly in front of his king there. Now his rook is threatening a pawn of mine that's not protected. And that would also come with a check. So I'd like to double my rooks and I can protect my g-pawn. There we go. We're up plus 5.4 here. At move 22. There we go. Let's see if we can carry this all the way through. He's connected his rook to his queen back there. He's starting to try and combobulate all of his pieces. But one thing to notice is that the attack, whatever else we've done, we've got 4, 5, 6, 7 pawns to 3, 4, 5 pawns, one of which is a little bit overly advanced. So that's worth remembering. If all the major pieces turns out even, I believe we've got the pawn structure to win an endgame. Okay, we've doubled our rooks. He's brought his queen. Interesting, the computer's asking for that check, which his king would have to move to the right, so it is interesting. But I think with the pawns I would probably win this game at the moment, quite easily actually, with the pawn structure. So let's get that to there. And we're starting to really make some threats in terms of back rank. And or, let's get the queens off, let's get the rooks off, let's get the bishops off, and then say we win. So he moves his queen back. He's not too keen on getting the queens off. I did look at this. If I go there, he takes me, I take him, he takes me, I take him. But his king gets me. We don't quite have enough to get through. So I've moved my king forward to give me the freedom to move my f3 rook and still protect both the g and the h pawns. He's got a bishop threatening the h pawn and a rook threatening the g pawn. So that frees up my all 4 of my pieces for attack, and they're all sort of aimed roughly at his king. He's given himself a bit of a battery at the h-pawn. Right now the bishop could take the h-pawn and I could not take back with the king. But you could look at it, I can now pin his bishop to his queen. I want these pieces off. Pinned. Interesting, throwing another piece down towards it. Stops me from putting a rook on g4, which was kind of one of the up and overs. And maybe he could even drive it forward another square, but when you get right down to it, it did nothing about the pin. The pin's still there. So I move my rook for a rook lift. If he comes forward with the pawn, I just take it. And if he doesn't, I can actually move my rook all the way across, threatening if I can get a protected rook to h8, I'll win a queen or a rook or something. It'll be good. But it's just another thing for him to think about. Okay, he's gotten rid of the pin. No, you don't. Let's get those bishops off. Okay. Now, If his pawn was still there, this is one good reason for the h4. It's avoided the back rank. Just to show everybody who's watching. If his pawn was there, so the king couldn't move to h7, right now we could have gone check. He'd take with his rook. We'd go check with our rook. The king couldn't take it because we're protected. And the king now would go to h7, but if his pawn was still back there, that would be game. So his one reason for the h pawn was to free him up a little bit. I haven't quite got the back ranked mate there either. So what we do is let's offer to get the queens off. He says no and gives me a check, mind. And I've moved my king across. Computer wants him to put his queen there. I'd just swap the queens off. That's what I've been trying for. But he takes a pawn, comes with check. I block, threaten his queen. For what it's worth, it protects my b pawn. The d pawn's protected by the queen. He's got to go back. Computer wanted him to go slightly further, but I'm not so sure about that because where he has gone, I can see what he was thinking. On the diagonal, that's got the diagonal for f8 there. Now, I get one rook across. I thought he might do that. You'd think, oh, he has pinned my queen to my rook. And if I move the queen, that queen can't protect the rook that it was pinned to. He's going to win a rook and it's going to come with check. But no. Watch the next few moves as we explode all of the major pieces off of the board. It's the happiest little plan I had in this game. The most ruthless, perhaps. So, check. Moves his king. And would have been slightly different if he'd moved a rook forward. I would have just taken a pair of rooks off and it wouldn't have been quite as fancy. But the next three moves, well, I'm happy with them anyway, so check this out. Check. He blocks. Check over here. Obvious only move to make is to take the rook with the queen. Now watch this. Check with the queen. So he can't go and take my rook, and moving his king to the side I think would just be foolish at this stage. In fact, it would result probably in mate. But he takes my queen with his queen. I don't take his queen with my pawn, that would be dumb. Check. There we go. And now we have 3, 4, 5, 6 pawns. I was kind of thinking this one was going to disappear. I was thinking it was going to be 5 versus 4. But these 3 can do a good job to stop those. That 4, that one's already blocked, and these 3 are far, far back. And I've got my king with these 2, marching 2 side by side, protected past pawns. I'm thinking it's looking pretty good for me at this point. And just to rub, well, not salt in the wound, but he zigged when he should have zagged then, because now I can get my G pawn. The computer doesn't even want it. But I can get my G pawn to protect my F pawn. So why wouldn't I? There you go. And if the king comes for the G pawn, the H pawn can extend that chain. And, you know, if he comes too far back, it's just looking... So he doesn't even go there. I send my king across to help with the blockade. He comes forward. Now I had to think about, if I take him, he goes forward, I come across. He goes forward. I come across. I'm in time. So yes, I'm in time to take the C pawn, and then the king comes for the D pawn. So I take, he comes, I go. He realises that pawn can't make it, so he's moved his A pawn forward. I come across, let's get that one. He comes flying forward, and mate in 18, yes, it does look pretty over. And let's see, I thought C5 was the obvious choice. They're all mate in 18, so why is one better than another? I have no idea. But, yeah, played. This king can't hold them both back, let alone I've got others coming. And it's at this point my opponent shook my hand. So I actually got an advantage relatively early. Let's just take a quick look at... It's a plus 2.7 there. It really ended up being a good place for my queen. What was the best? Queen e2 was a mistake. What was best? Let's have a look. Oh, the other move that I'd thought about with keeping his queen and bishop out and moving pawn forward. Yep, I'll wear that. But got an advantage and carried it all the way through to the end. He managed to stop a number of checkmating threats, but it was at the cost of a number of pawns. When that was obvious and we only had 2 rooks and a queen each, it's very hard to stop your opponent from forcing the trades. And in the end it was quite a nice bang, 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 forced, getting rid of all the rooks and queens. And then for a change from me, we had very nice... Might as well show everybody this. Not often I've got an endgame 96.4%. And strangely enough, actually it's not that strange. As we know, the computer doesn't like the way the hippo doesn't take space at the start. So that's pretty typical. So I played above my rating, ruthless all the way through, which is nice, and it's nice to finish with some good endgame technique. So I'll see you guys next time.